Hello, everyone. Hope you guys are doing well. Good morning, everyone, especially the YouTubers up early this morning, right? It's 9:51 on this, is it Friday? It's Friday, right? Making sure. I feel like yesterday it was like Valentine's Day. Maybe I'm wrong. All right, anyway, it is flowing on fast, active weather pattern. And a lot of you have had the same storylines where, you'd like the rainier days, but man, you just really wish the ability to get out there and work in the yard, to get things done, ready to go for the spring season. Totally understand that. We're up against Derby time now, so everyone's trying to plan for that. And whether you're having a gathering at your house or going to Churchill or any of the events, all that requires the weather to cooperate. And trust me, this is probably the most intense that our weather department, and probably the same with other weather departments in the country with big events. But for us, this is our week and weeks ahead, really coming ahead for us here at Wave. That's a lot of pressure is on because there's so many people here in town, so many people visiting. And it is, of course, a weather sensitive setup for just about everyone except for the better races. I think they're the only ones that don't do too bad there. But everything else is weather sensitive. So trust me, we feel the pressure, and what we've been trying to do, and we've done this several years, we try to divide up our attention to different events that are coming up soon. And we try to split off as a team and work on how things are trending and compare our data and try to come up with a good forecast by the time we get closer to such events. So that's usually the game plan that works really well for us. It's just when the weather kind of goes off the rails, it gets to be a bit of a nightmare. Talking to you, 2028. Okay, so obviously we had some rain and thunder last night. We're going to cover that briefly, update on the rivers, and I just issued another alert day a few moments ago for another system, and I'll show you when to expect that here in just a second. Let's start off with a live look right now at Spaghetti Junction. You know what? And looking at the junction, it really isn't that bad right now anyway. We are seeing at least some of the grass. The water is not as high as what it was there around the trees at the park area, the fences and the swings near the junction. So it looks like it is down just a tad. I don't have another camera view that was set. All of them are aimed at this location. So it's hard for me to show you a different vantage point, but I'll try to show you a couple with our Trimark cameras here in just a second. In fact, let's start with the rainfall amounts from last night's rain. In Louisville, we did gust to 40 miles per hour. I heard my wind chimes going crazy. It was an outflow boundary more than anything. Didn't get a ton of rain, about a quarter of an inch, but hey, quarter of an inch means a little much now for our pattern that we're in versus a dry stretch. So a quarter of an inch, it wasn't enough to cause any flash flooding, urban street flooding, or anything like that. And certainly didn't impact the rivers, but it's certainly a reminder that we've got to get more dry periods here ahead of us in the days ahead to really make a difference in our area rivers and our water table and just general zones in your neighborhoods. The water table needs to go back down again so you can get into digging and planting and so forth. Because right now you just start digging, you're going to go right into water. So at the moment, these smaller little pieces are not too bad. We just don't want too many of them. And we certainly do not want another big round of rain. And we'll take a closer look at that in just a second. Here it is on the radar estimates of really was two low pressures that passed through last night. One moved right over Kentucky. The second one moved right over Louisville. And that second one, just you can even tell by the rain pattern, has a curl to it. That's how the rain band was actually moving as it moved across portions there. Washington County and Scott, Clark County, Harrison County. It kind of just lingered and did a little spin. That in itself was not a tornado. That was just the big red L that we show you on TV all the time. That was the core of the low. And our concern we had yesterday afternoon after going through the midday data and late afternoon is, boy, what if this ends up being a little slower to move than expected? We could run into at least some flash flooding issues. We weren't too worried about river flooding, but flash flooding would be a concern. Thankfully, we didn't get to that level, but certainly the hints were there because this system, which was originally forecast to produce maybe a few tenths of an inch of rain, ended up over 2 inches of rain because of that slow stall that took place. And it wasn't over an area really to cause any of the tributaries to really fill up or have a negative reaction on the river falls that are happening. But if this were displaced more on the Louisville metro into Shepherdsville, something like that, it would likely have caused a bigger concern. So at least didn't fall in the spots that would have bigger problems. And those that did get hit by the rain, I'm hoping you have minor issues at all, if any at all, in your area. All right, here we go. The rolling fork. Hey, look at that. The one little dip. My brain is fried, so I apologize. My creative ability for grammar today is pretty much shot. Not that it's ever around on a normal day, but today especially. So I apologize. My second grade teacher who is watching. We do have some hints of the rolling fork there. And of course, there's the rolling fork in its entirety. On the other side is 65 in southern Bullitt County. But yeah, that reconstruction, I think, was a big player on preventing issues there. The rolling fork, by the way, 41.49 on its way down. It's now out of major flood status. That's good. Looks like it's even into minor. Should be an action stage by tomorrow, and then back within its banks by the time we get into the latter half of the weekend. Great news there. Good to see that. Salt River, also on the decline. 30 inches as of last check. Just about out of flood stage altogether by later today. The Kentucky River at Franklin Lock, a bit of a disjointed forecast path because the forecast was for there to be a little bit more rain, I believe, maybe in that area, and that's why there was a bit of a jump. So this forecast will be updated in about two hours. There will be a new update from the Ohio Valley Corps of Engineers. They'll look at that, and there may be an adjustment on this to see how they handle the Kentucky River, but it shouldn't go back into flood stage or anything. It's just a minor points for those you keeping it on at home. The White River, at least the East Fork into Seymour, still up there into minor flood, crossing into minor into action, and then eventually back within its banks by the time we get into next week. Blue River in Fredericksburg. Oh, this is interesting. Well. Yes, a little bit of a jump up. I guess you could probably guess why that would take place. And that, of course, I showed you those downpours in Indiana last night. It was a little more at risk of some of those heavier downpours, and that's the reason why there's a small jump there for the Blue River. But it's a minor one, only a couple of inches or maybe a foot or two that could have went up, and then they'll begin to drop back down again here very soon. But rivers are very sensitive to rainfall events, right? All right, and do the last big two, and then I'll move on. McAlpin lower near the casino area of Louisville. Here we go, 65.18. Still listed into moderate flood stage, but barely. Should be out of that stage at some point tonight or early tomorrow. And back in its banks by early next week. The Ohio at McAlpin upper. 33, it is in its moderate flood stage, soon to be dropping down into its minor flood. But that may not happen until tomorrow morning, and then out of flood stage altogether by Sunday night or into Monday. So that's where we are on the gauges as of now. Now, this is not considering our weather pattern in the weeks ahead of what will happen and could allow for these numbers and levels to go back up again. It's just that right now there are no extreme events. And usually around here, to get that many rivers to get out of their banks that fast takes an anomaly event, a historic event for that to happen, to cover all of your basins in a wide area and then just flood them. And then all those tributaries then go into the bigger rivers like the Ohio, flood them, and then you flood downstream from there. So that whole process is 1, 2, 3 stepping up. It takes a tremendous weather event to get to that point. And we certainly just had that. I can tell you by looking at the data so far in the days, even weeks ahead, I do not see anything to that extreme happening. We're going to have some more rain. We're going to have some thunderstorms at times, but the thresholds will have a far lower level to them compared to what we had with this last one, which is why we call it historic. Doesn't happen very often. All right, so the low pressure is across Kentucky. It is still there. What a stubborn little system. Slowly there, but it's spinning. Instead of being over it, it's heading southbound, and will continue to do so later on today and tonight. It does have a batch of clouds with it as well. That will keep us mostly cloudy today. The more it disintegrates and drifts to the south, we'll have a chance to get some sun breaks, but you can tell it's going to be painfully slow. So it's a very sluggish setup here as a new low pressure is going to be taking over here off the Carolina coast and become the big guy in charge. And once that takes place and runs up the East Coast, this will all just basically get pulled into it and disintegrate. So we'll get into a clearing sky for the night tonight. Could be some fog around tonight too. All right, here is on one of our high-res models, and we're going to advance this. Here we go. We're going to go into a partly cloudy sky by evening. Tomorrow, chilly again. Yep. I don't see a frost or freeze alert. I think the wind may be preventing that from happening, but worth watching. Otherwise, a pretty looking Saturday. I know. Shame Thunder of Louisville wasn't tomorrow. Although to me, 50s is still kind of cool to be standing outside. I think 70s, lower 70s are perfect. So it wouldn't have been bad if we had thunder. It wouldn't have been bad. But obviously, way too dangerous, and no one would have had a good time. Logistics would have been a nightmare trying to pull that off. But anyway, moving on. Sunday, partly sunny sky comes back into play. Starting off chilly, but perhaps not as chilly. And then we have a nice jump in our numbers when we head into Sunday afternoon. I think 66 is way too low. I think we'll be in the 70s as we head into Sunday. So Sunday is the pick day to get outside and enjoy some really nice weather coming into play. What questions you got? Hi, Michelle. Tomorrow is your birthday's tomorrow. Oh, happy early birthday. Carrie says the snow lover. I'm not sure what I said on the snow part, but come back around. Let's see. There was damage yesterday in the Princeton tornado. Yes, that's outside of our area. That's why I didn't get into a lot of detail on it. But yes, the roof was blown off. A lot of insulation everywhere. Power line poles snapped in half. Yeah, that was an EF1 in Princeton area, Adam. Let's see. Any other questions? Cal says Brian is the man. My friends would be like, yeah, right. Let's see. Some of your comments are kind of split, so we got to give me a minute to kind of piece together your code. You guys work for the CIA or something? They're all speaking in code. I have to piece together conversations. Okay. I think everyone's all right. Amy, let me get your question. Hi, Amy, I haven't seen you in so long. Where floodwaters cause terrible flooding in the southern states? Not necessarily, only the immediate locations that will be downstream from the confluence of the Ohio, Mississippi coming together, and the Missouri too. But all of that will allow for certainly high levels and to get, I would say, near Memphis and then south of Memphis. The momentum just kind of eases downward. A lot of that water gets absorbed either in the banks of the Mississippi or off to the side or just general evaporation. And by the time that ripple keeps going, there will be some increase in Louisiana all the way to New Orleans, but not to the point where they're like, oh, where'd this water come from? They're not going to notice that much of a jump because it does just kind of ripple away further in distance. But good question. Appreciate you asking that. All right, so we get into, let's see, this is Sunday. We get a quiet weekend. Monday is the only thing that stands out that we need to watch. And this is where we have a front moving in. This one's a bit odd to me. I'll be honest, it's a bit odd. Because we are dry and not overly cool, but we're dry. Not a whole lot happening here Friday morning, especially. Then the slow pressure and its attached front zips on by the Great Lakes. As it does so, it is creating, in several different layers of the atmosphere, a moisture and warmth surge. It goes right up the front. It doesn't go straight up this way into Kentucky out of Tennessee, okay? It starts in Arkansas, basically, and gets funneled up the front that way. So far, the data trends indicate that's exactly what will happen, is that the front will do a last-minute scooping of fuel and just enough fuel to allow for thunderstorms that would then begin to fire on the front at the last minute of Monday. And as that advances, you start to see them begin to pop on the radar, although there's not a lot of strong hints of that. I still think this is where your greater potential on anything severe is going to be across Ohio, Pennsylvania, parts of West Virginia. And if I had to extend it to our area, I think it's going to be more of an issue for Tennessee and perhaps into the Smoky Mountains. Not so yet on the initiating line of storms right along the front in the river. There's still a buffer that has to be worked out on where the front would even be. If it's ahead of us at this point, well, then we know it's easy. The storm threat is going to be on the other side of the Ohio River. If it's starting to slow down and the storms blossom in Indiana near the Wabash or even around Seymour, then we will have a bigger issue of thunderstorms for the entire region Sunday afternoon and night. So there's still those differences being worked out. But the data has been consistent, and that's what we go for. We look at consistency on the data, look at analogs to try to help us out in picking out some similarities. And so far, there has been, it's not an overwhelmingly high signal that this is going to be a major event, but there is a strong signal that you can get severe weather on this front for Monday afternoon, Monday night. So I did flag it as an alert day for that issue. And let's just see if it holds to the weekend. And if Carson's going to be looking at it, if he feels like it's going away, he'll take it away. FSU guys on Monday, and we're still talking about it. Well, you kind of know what happened there. All right, so that's going to be quick at least. It's not going to linger into a flooding issue. Moves in and moves on out. Here are the severe weather modeling guidance on this, if you will. Let me show what those look like. All right, so this is the, on the far left, this is the analogs from SIPS. Maybe hard to see that. Louisville's about right there. Well, I'm always in the wrong pen, but I can't change the pen color right now. Sorry. But you see that yellow blob. That's Kentucky and Tennessee and partly Indiana. So it's over us. Here is CSU, which CSU is going through an overhaul right now on its database, but they're able to give us some maps every once in a while. This is one of them. Notice the severe potential on this map is higher, indeed, northeast Kentucky into Pennsylvania and West Virginia, and a low risk along the front in our area. I really like what CSU is doing. Storm Prediction Center feels that it needs to go a little further south, so they included us into the ball game as well. This middle map from CSU, my feeling is where you see yellow is probably going to be a slight risk. Where you see brown will be a marginal risk. So it's going to be very, very close, so very iffy on it being an alert day set up for us or not. Just know that potential is there for, again, as we head into Monday. After that, it moves on by. We stay cool for a couple of days, but I'm watching a very strong system. It's trying to show up as we head into Friday that wants to really dig into the area. Right now, it doesn't have a lot of severe weather parameters to it, but could give us a good soaking rain next Friday, Good Friday. And as it moves on by, it may allow for a cool shot of air, maybe even some chilly air for the Easter holiday weekend. We'll see how that plays out before we get into what I think will be a big warm spell as we head toward Derby week. All right, let me get into 10-day real quick and then got to run. Any questions you guys may have? I can answer one or two. Oh, yeah, but the stalls for next week, Kyle. I'm glad you're paying attention. I'm not seeing that signal for a stalling setup yet, but the pattern is still right for one, if that makes sense. As soon as I see a signal match or the modeling match the pattern potential, then I will let you know. It comes and goes. Right now, we're not there yet to show it. Okay, everyone seems all right. Everyone's asking about prediction for Derby weather. Well, as we all know, John Asher says 75 and sunny. I will just leave it at that. All right, guys. Y'all take care. I will see you coming up at 11 a.m.